There you are. So in the second house, right, we got the house of values, the house of you know stability and money, financial stability, value. Second house, right, and then we have Venus there. Now we're gonna go through Venus in every sign in the second house. So Venus and Aries in the second house. That means you value your passionate love. That means you value, your vision a lot, for your relationship. So you see the relationship going in a certain way, and you're gonna lead the relationship that you're in with, a person you love. Whether that be, how you run your family, or you, sexual relationship, whatever the fuck it is, man. Like whatever the people you love in your life, you're seen as, the light that guides them out of, the bad times, and then during the good times, you're kind of seen as, a fun person, but you can also be seen as a person that's, too aggressive at times. You know, when someone talks bad about somebody you love, you lash out at those people, because you love them that much. You see it as, I'm defending that person. I don't know why you don't see what I see in that person the same way I do. Or maybe, people know that about you and they don't like that, you know, but they, don't hate you for it. Maybe some people do in your family, but, for you, you like that about yourself. You know, I'm gonna, fight for the people I care about, people I love. I'm gonna stand up. I'm gonna get loud on their behalf because that's what I need to do. I wouldn't let that person, somebody that I love, suffer like that. Like, I ain't gonna do that. I'll be their voice. I'll be that person that stands up and fights for them. You know, but on the other hand, you might be aggressive in, your love relationships too. When somebody you love hurts you, you're gonna hurt them. They might have done something that you don't like. So then you're gonna, lash out. And that's but you value that in yourself because you don't like hiding shit in the relationship necessarily, and you don't. You ain't typically a hider. You don't hide. You know, when you love somebody, show them you love them. You go out and do shit with them, and then you kind of get upset too. When they don't want to be around you, but you can also be like, all right, that's fine. You know, but deep down you're like, damn, you god damn, it gets on your nerves. But you still don't hate yourself because you know that you are the one in the relationship that's bringing the life, the fun, the real energy to the fucking relationship. It wasn't, the other person who you. It is you. Typically Venus and Aries is not a great place to be in, but it's not the worst placement when you value yourself because or value love the way you love. Because other people see that and they're like, damn, I want to be more like that. And it's funny too because in the second house you don't really want to have that type of energy, and not just for your people relationship, but your relationship with money. Because you're a person that don't care about money. Honestly, um, money is not something that you value, prioritize. It's like the vision you have. So like it don't matter how we get that, but it has to be that. I don't care. About what kind of job I have. I'm gonna do what's fun to me. What challenges me. You know, to be better. You know, what I find fun. And then people see that and they're like, damn, that's so and so. I love that about him. I love that about him. They really bring energy to the relationship, things. People value that about you and you value that about yourself. But then the next person, this person, they value their time and energy, so they don't care about being outgoing as much, and like they actually care about their money and where it goes and other things, and making money over time. Because for them, the money's stability. You know, they can build a life around that. You know, they can then be somebody that people can come and confide in. And they can do what they need to do. Build a business. Have a career that they want to have. You know, um, no, just whatever kind of job they decide they want to have, because they have the ability to be patient with themselves and be like, okay, what do I like and what do I not like? Now that I know what I like, I want to have this kind of job and I want to do this type of thing. And the things that they really excel at and love, they're gonna do that because like they're gonna go to work. It ain't gonna be like work. It ain't gonna be just a job to them. It's like a way of life for them. You know, because they took the time to okay, this type of thing ain't gonna work for me because I don't feel good waking up in the morning and going to that type of job. I'm not gonna be at that kind of job. I'm you know I value money, but I also value the time in my life because why are you gonna go put in those hours over there when you don't want to do that? You're gonna make sure you have a job that you can have for years and love doing. And it's funny thing is you might not be able to make a lot of money at that job even, but then you can figure out ways. And because I said this person values that type of stability, financial stability, they're gonna use the job that they love to do, even though it don't make much money. They're gonna put money aside into like a side hustle or something like that, and like all that people see that work after a while. They don't see it at the beginning. Like they don't, they have no idea, and they don't. But then when things get off the ground and shit, they see that, then they're like, hey, I never knew. Yeah, I do this kind of thing, and I like it, and that's what I do. And then people are like, damn, some people that come to this person, be like, damn, I wish I had a job that I liked, you know. Or they find friends who also do similarly, and they make connections with people that way. Um, but it's like for them, it's like I'm doing it for me. I love myself, so I'm gonna make sure I put myself in that position. I can put myself in a shitty position and feel like shit all the time. You know, I can't do that. I can still be of service to others and still not put myself second, put myself first. Um, and I can do that, but it takes time and patience within oneself. And then once they find that job, that thing they like to do, they'll make money from it, and then that's the richness and wealth they have. Um, but then people see that, and they sometimes see it before they even become that. And those people who stuck around, they want to care for those people. They want to take care of those people. You were there for me when I was down bad. I didn't even have the type of money I have now, but you're still here. I'm gonna love you and keep you by my side, like because you've always been there for me. I'll make sure you're alright too, and make sure you're taken care of, like financially, and I'm gonna buy you things when the time's right. When the time's right, like for birthdays or anniversaries or whatever, you know, that type of thing. They earn it, because they gotta like earn that, like it said, it's not just for anybody, it's for the people they love and care for. And this person, loyalty is also something they value when it comes to like the people and shit, right? So they value patience and they value loyalty. This person, who has Taurus and Venus in second house. So the next person values communication amongst, that communication amongst, fellow people who talk about, ideas that they have about, improving the world around them, different ways. I like this idea moving forward. We should consider doing this type of thing. I've heard that, in the world people do this. Let's incorporate this into our communities. And then, I don't know, you know, this type of technology. Let's start this type of podcast and get it out. you know, that type of deal, and then this person also, for because this is Venus, right? So this person can sit back a little bit and be like, and I don't mean sit back because they're still talking and shit. Don't get stupid, with me, um, because this person don't like that either. They value, intellectual conversations, civil conversations, not just, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, or I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this because, or I don't like this because, those type of things, we can, keep a conversation going. That's cool. Yeah. But this person don't mind being a listener too. That's where I was going with this, because this is Venus, so they can now not just talk and lead a conversation and be the one, chatterbox and everybody up in the room or whatever, right? And letting people know what they know, right? But they can, ask questions and then sit back and take notes and go, okay, you know, I was wondering if you could help me out with this, um, what's going on here and da, 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 da. And they can like sit back and listen and then give feedback and have back and forth and shit like that, and they like that in their relationships with their like loved ones and shit too. I want to talk to you and communicate. I'll shoot you text messages every day and shit and see if you know doing all right. If you're doing good and like what you got going on in your relationships. Hey brother, is shit okay over there? Family members doing okay? Are we on good terms still? You know, I know I've been talking to a lot, or girl, still, we still doing this thing, are you not wanting to talk to me because, you've been doing some things, or, maybe maybe this person won't do that, because they, value communication. Maybe if they cheated in a relationship, they'll have to, tell that, eventually, you know, tell somebody else to tell somebody else. They could do that because this person, like, but in their relationships, they like people who are smart though. They won't be around. They won't be in a relationship with somebody they can't talk to, somebody that they can't, formulate plans with. Their ideas they have for like the future and shit. You know, they don't want people who don't, can't make things happen. You know, that way, or maybe not that way, but we can't bounce ideas off each other and make some things happen. Because they don't want to just be in a relationship where they're the ones talking and other things and they'll look to for things too. They can be that, right? But they also want somebody who can like talk to them, and, not just bump on the log. I'm talking and then you just there. Yeah, they don't like that. They value communication a lot in their relationships, and they love when people talk to them. They acknowledge their existence. Yeah, there's no, worse nightmare for this person than being the only person not in the world. They would never let that happen. They'll keep those people who like that, like talk to them in their, prayers and all kind of shit. But they really do like that. If, people left them who were like, cool friend. guy always talk to me after school or after work or whatever. And, they end up like going somewhere. And they'll be like, damn, I don't have that no more. Because they value that much. They'll be like, damn. They'll talk to people still, but it just ain't the same. They're like, there's a piece of me that's missing. And then they'll start trying to search for that again. They'll try to search for something like that. Another friend who's like that, or another relationship that's like that. You know, but they're always, they love that um, mental stimulation. These people do. But the next person now, and that person does, find financial stability when they find the right people who want to calls their ideas and other things. Right? So, we can do this type of job. We can, do this, come up with this plan, and we can make money. That type of thing. It's not a just me thing. It's a, I can, bring people in on this who want to listen to me and, listen to the idea and implement this idea into our daily life so we can, make some fun. And that's what they'll do. So that they ain't necessarily not well financially off, but they ain't like the tourists, because again they value the communication more, and it's not the solid the material thing. And the material thing, man, that ain't a bad thing, man. That's you having your shit together. Um, Now this next person, uh, the Cancer and Venus like this person over here, they love deep conversation. They don't mind hearing about this and that, what happened to them. That was so bad or whatever. Right? But it's mostly it's the people they love and shit. They care for these people, right? And they care deeply. So guess what? When they see you, they don't just see you like that. They like, anything would happen to you, I'll be done scared. If you left me, I would be, out of sorts because like I put so much time and energy into this relationship that we have. We have we spend great time together. We like being around each other. And I understand in this person, um, I don't even care about the things even. This person, sometimes, you know, depending on the sign and shit, it ain't even like that. It's like you just being there. I need that. And that's what they're like. Um, and they do that, and they're like, I need you here with me. If you ain't here, shit falls apart. It's that emotional connection they have with one another. Close family relatives. When I have to move on or whatever. Let's say a kid graduates from high school and they go to college. They might be this person who has cancer. They might be like, oh shit, my family. They'll be talking about their family a lot. To other people. And they look for that type of thing in love. Do you care about your family and shit? And if they find a person who's like that too, they'll try to, meet their family members and those things, get to know them. That's how they build their deep connection with friends, family members. And if anything happens to those family members, they're the ones who are like the most, depressed and all shit. Um, but yeah, that's them. They value that deep connection with other people, and they can tell when their lovers are, the people they love, mostly, the people they actually love, the people who are like close and they're like, full, not their acquaintances, not them, they're, friends and close friends and family. Um, they do that shit. Um, And then when the family members ain't around, it's like not good time for them. They kind of need that. And then some people try to like, act like, I'll be alright without them. But then they still find themselves, crying and shit by themselves. Or being like, really out of sorts, like their life falls apart type shit. Because they put so much into that person, and then like for some reason they have to leave. Anytime they're gone for any amount of time, they're thinking about that person, and their well-being. They're that type of individual when they fall in love. They gotta watch out for themselves though. Remember they have themselves too. That would be my advice to these creatures and shit. Um, 'Cause that is fine to care for other people. It is. Watch yourself too. That was stuff, man. But the next person is Leo, and and Leo and Venus in the second house. Now, this person, what they're gonna do is they're gonna play games. They're gonna make shit fun, for their like close friends and family members, but and like they're known to be that person who like brings their spirits up. When shit's bad, we have our son, our friend, or my husband, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, and she's there to pick me back up. He's there to pick me back up. He's there to make sure I feel damn like alive, basically. You know, he's there to, or he is, she's there to not that, but they're there to light the way. Because I see what they're trying to do in the relationship. See, these people like to take control of the relationship. That can be a good thing if they have the right person around. Uh, and they're like sexual relationship they have with the loved one. Uh, in their family, they might have been seen as a self-centered child, a little bit. Um, he's the one who always gets what he wants, or she all the time, always get what they want. Because if they don't, they lash out and they bitch about things. But it's also like they do, you know, like I said, they have their own way. They see things. They see a vision and they attack. They have confidence, right? And then people love them for that. And this person who also don't care about money, and they love that about this person. The people who love them and shit. It was never about the money for this person. Like never. That's not even a thing. It's let's spend time together. And let's have fun. And it's me. The person. I'm the one who's gonna like make it fun. The person who has Leo and Venus, and they love when people acknowledge them for that. And when they do that, and they do for others, and they do it in extravagant ways, they're like, I'll buy you some gifts. Man, my friend deserves this type of gift. He's with me. My girl, my boyfriend, he needs this type of, gift because it's like what we need. We don't deserve the like bottom line shit. Like, no, man, we need that, the best we can get, you know. But and people know them to be that way and other things, and it's like, damn, make it happen somehow. And that's what people fall in love with, with this person. But then this person can also be, like I said, not financially right and shit. And they're like, hey man, money's a thing too. Right? Yeah, make sure you have your shit together too. Sometimes you have to cut back on shit like that, and like a more immature person, or a person who's like really locked in on what they see, and like the fun they had like planned out. Like, hey man, we gonna like turn the fuck up. And so, but then, no man, we can't be turning up and shit. Their friends saying, they can see that as like an act of betrayal. And shit. Be like, oh man, what the fuck? You're gonna like, make you. And he's like, So there can be like that type of thing in a relationship where fights can happen between brother and sister, people they love, whoever they love, man. Different people have different type of relationships, man. Um, and they like to lead their relationships, be the one that's like, yeah, you'll be all right. You stick with me and everything will be all right. You And then when people don't want to, see their vision and, follow through on what their position is in the relationship, um, they'll get, agitated and aggressive, just like their relationship, they'll get loud and other things, and you'll know they're upset, because they were like, hey man, it's understood that I'm the one who leads this relationship. You're the one who like follows through, on your end, but now you want to do other things. Yeah, that's not cool because this is fixed fire, so they have a fixed way, seeing their vision. It's playing out a certain way. Now they can adapt a little bit too because this is fire, but like certain shit is just not, tolerated in the relationship as well. And they'll get active on you too. Um, and that's them being deeply hurt by you. That they lash out and get loud at you. That's what it is. Just the way they are, and like it, and this person might not be a fiery personality, but when they love somebody, they like that, you know. But and they value that part of themselves. Look, man, when I love somebody, I get loud and I fucking lash out and all kind of shit, man. You know, and they shouldn't, do that to me. Or, maybe I was in the wrong, because sometimes they, like I said, they, don't see, the other people. It's like just them. They're focused on, oh, what somebody did to me, sometimes. But, this person, they don't value money. They value the people they have around them. And they try to, let them know it different ways. Different people do different things. They'll get them gifts, with the best kind of gifts and other things. They'll, create, parties around the shit that, they like. Make things fun, keep things, alive, and, people's spirits up when shit's, bad. And they value that part of themselves. It's not about the money. It ain't even about the, conversation necessarily. They like conversation, but, fun, fun times, good laughs. You know. Next person is Virgo. So this is Virgo, Venus, and the second house. So this person likes to have their shit together too. This is their signs and stuff, right? So this guy, no, this guy, this girl, they make sure that people, their friends, and their um, family members, the people they actually love in this life, are gonna heat off to making sure they're taking care of themselves. Make sure that you are financially stable. Make sure that you're following a routine schedule. Make sure that your health is right. Make sure that you um they're gonna like hold you to it, man, like for real. If they love you and shit, yeah. They'll call you out when you're like half-assing shit and other things, man. You didn't go to work today, what the fuck is going on, in a relationship, because they like to make sure things are, taken care of. And like if they're doing their part, they need to make sure that their partner is too. Like they like somebody who's capable, and mentally and um like practically too. You know, you could be dumber than them, but or this person could even be dumb too, to a degree, and still like every once in a while they could step back and be like, hold on now, let me make sure that my relationship's all right. Hey, are you taking care of bills and things taken care of there, and are you doing all right, and are you, making sure you're, doing what you gotta do, you know, to be, still, are you, working out, are you, taking care of yourself? If find signs of you not doing shit like that, I'm gonna call you out and be like, hey, what the fuck, It's to not to, drown them in their, what they ain't doing right. Is to call them out and then be like, here, man, do this, or girl, do this to, get yourself right. And we can, continue this relationship how it's supposed to be, and then this person does do that, the relationship's supposed to be built upon this, this, and this, and then, when they lay the ground rules in the relationship, they lay some rules and shit, specific rules. And if one of these specific things ain't followed right, they're gonna, damn man, they're gonna, get out of sorts a little bit. Not even out of sorts, they're just gonna nitpick you. And it's because they love you and they want to, make sure the relationship works out. They don't want to see the person they love, fail. Like, so like you have a career and you say you want to do this, they're gonna hold it to you. They you said you wanted to, go out and do this type of thing, but then you're not doing that. You're doing something else or whatever. They're gonna make sure. They're gonna be in your ass a little bit. But they don't do that for everybody. They'll see some dumbass that they don't know. They won't. They won't do that. They understand that that's somebody. But they're gonna like really ruin your ass and shit, man, because they care about your well-being and the relationship working. Like I said, this person does care about financial stability as well, so they're gonna create a well manageable money plan. This money for this, money for that. This type of thing. Um, we will not share money with these people. We'll keep money like this, and that's what that person does. And then this person could be like a Leo and shit and stuff too. They could be fucking around with stuff sometimes, but they catch themselves and they're like, hold on, is my relationship suffering because, I like to play games and shit. And this type of Leo is actually, one who probably will, keep a relationship afloat because he or she will, can catch themselves and be like, hold on, maybe I am, not seeing shit right now. But they could, catch themselves, drifting off into, foolishness. Damn. So this is a decent placement to have, as well. But Libra. Now Libra in second house. Libra Venus in the second house. That's alright too. This person values the, calm and cool nature. Their cooperativeness. In the relationship you gotta have, cooperation. That's cool. We cannot not talk to each other and stuff, family members and other shit, let me know what the fuck's going on with you, because I need that, to know that you're doing all right. I need to know that, you're holding shit down over there, you're doing this. And if you need help from me, you can come talk to me, that type of thing too. Um, there's no need to, keep that shit to yourself or anything like that. And that's what they do. They're that type of person in a relationship. Um, the people they want, and they're always saying that, that type of thing. You can always come and talk to me. Like I'm there for conversations, and I'm there for you, even if it's like some financial shit too. We'll figure some things out. We'll talk to these people. We'll get these ideas going. We can bounce ideas off each other and figure something out. But it was like communication too. That type of communication, and I don't mind. You know, because I, if I love somebody, I'm gonna put more time and energy into them. as opposed to some other fucking person who don't want to hear me talk, or, don't have, you just, ain't somebody that, because I love the people I love, and the people that I love, I'm gonna talk to more, and have great communication with family members, my, close friends, every day if I can, you know. I'm not gonna let work get in the way of that. Even if I am at work, this person gonna like shoot type of message and be like, man, work some shit, I'll be there and we can, meet up and do something. You know, and this person has all kinds of relationships because this is a legal, and like the relationships they have, they like to build security and everything, so they don't like to be with somebody who don't. If they're with somebody, right, and like a loving relationship, and even if they are with somebody who's like not as cool as they are, cooperative or whatever, they're gonna make sure that the person, like they might not like cooperating with other people, but they're gonna cooperate with them, and make sure the finances are taken care of. It's just cool. And it's built on that communication. That's the key there. We gotta let me know, this ain't right, this ain't right. I might need to get something done where we can work on something else. We can get a side hustle, some shit. And that they built that type of in their relationships with the people they know. But it's like the communication that they value, more than anything. I need to know that you're mine, right? That you ain't gonna fall apart on me and dip out and play fucking games like over there. We understand that, or we know that, certain ideas, we like certain ideas. We're gonna make some things happen with these ideas moving forward in the relationship. We're gonna make sure our, community and the people around us are cool too. I'm gonna do that, and you're gonna be cool. Basically, because like sometimes this person gets with somebody who's like not cool with them, like being a social animal. But they like to let them know and shit. That's why it's built on communication. Understand that I'm talking to these other people, but that don't mean I love those people more than you. I might be talking to some fuck over here because I need to, get our finances in order, you know. But it's built upon, cool, cool communication, you know, and that cooperation, with one another towards goals and shit, and that's what they value. Now the next person, values in their, love, the way they show love and shit. This is Scorpio, so this is another one that's like, very cool. Venus and Scorpio is not a great placement to have, right? But now it's in the second house, so this means this person values their drive, their desires, their deep passions, not just their passions, right? So what does that mean? Things that don't need to be spoken about, but they are spoken about. Sometimes um, they won't love people, um, man, who don't got guts, right? And like real guts, So you can say that you're doing this and doing that, but what are you actually doing? Because like the actions speak for themselves and shit, and they can see shit like that in other people. But they see it in themselves too. They love that they have guts and they'll, jump into, things without thinking. They don't really think sometimes. Um, Not typically, sometimes, because now this is in Venus, though, right? So when love, they jump into it and they don't think about it. They're like, man, I care for this person, that type of thing. I care for her. I care for him, and they have an intense love for this person. It's an intense love, and it is too. But what happens is, because this is water and stuff, what's this other stuff? Um, they have to know that sometimes you're in a relationship. Um, People have to like go away and other things, and maybe you know this person also, don't really care for the talking and shit too much sometimes. Um, but they can too. Um, but like when time is spent with other people and not them, that's when they get like they lash out and shit. Why would you hang out with those people? You need to spend more time with me. It's like a that type of thing, and like they have those types of attachments still. You're doing shit with other people. I can they can be very volatile. And shit, you can't be around those people. You need to be around me because I'm the one doing things in this relationship, and I am. I'm doing things for you that I don't do for other people. Like I would never fucking do that shit for anyone else, but you. This could be a family member. This could be the person they're fucking and loving with. And that's how they love deeply and intensely. This person, they don't give a fuck about money. They don't, they understand that's the thing and stuff, but and they're willing to get it too, in different ways and shit for the people they love. But it ain't even about that. It's about you sticking with what the fuck's going on. Do negative shit, and I might be out of sorts of times and other shit, but hey, you're still there, and you ain't going around with something else. You ain't hanging around other people too much. Um, it's that type of intensity, almost toxic and shit. Um, but hey, sometimes it can make shit work when the other said person is also like that type of dependable. Um, like I need that deep connection, and like they're actually like that too. They can make that shit work. you know, people have that weak ass Venus sign and Scorpio. Don't even hate yourself and shit, because guess what? And it ain't that you ain't a good lover or anything. You just gotta find that one person that's cool to like fuck around with and stuff. That's all it is. Who won't, who will see what you do and like what that does, and want to be with them. You know, they appreciate your intensity as opposed to it's overwhelming. I don't like that. That's scary. You know, you know, the person like that, that'll be alright. And then that type of thing. Typically lovers, not like that. You care about money, not for the money, but for like the stability, and it ain't about that, but you gotta build something sometime, take care of yourself that way. But you would put in certain situations, you put your life on the line in like a way that's you don't mind doing some fucking dangerous shit. You this person, but it's a good thing too for to some people, and they value that too. The people who really do love you and shit. But you know, you love that about yourself too. When you fall in love and shit. But you also might hate yourself too, because every time you find somebody that you like deep connect with, but if you find that deep connection with, and there's somebody else that's like that too, man, it might work out. But don't expect the like financial blessings too much. If you ain't focused on that shit too much. You can be lost in that that shit. But you're gonna still do your thing. Um, and then the next person is Sagittarius. Now the Sagittarius is gonna be they're gonna be fun and stuff too. And they're gonna be loud too. Um, See, when you do some shit that they don't like, they're gonna be like, no, 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 no. They'll let you know right away, and they won't be nice about it sometimes. They won't. They'll just let it fly out their mouth. In relationships that they love too, they'll be like, hey, you're a dumbass for doing that. You're a fool. you're a stupid bitch for doing that. Da 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 da. You don't do that. Not around here. You know, and other things. They'll let them know. And they can get active too. They don't like slow shit too. Um, but you know, um, like slow shit in that like okay, I want to do this. I want to do this shit now. Then somebody's like, no, man, like let's not do that right now. Let's focus on getting this money. Let's focus on doing other things. Let's not go to that concert. Let's not go to do that thing just because you feel like we need to do that right now. We feel like we need to do it right now. You can get active. You can get angry. You can get loud. This is fine. You'll get pissed off and you'll fly off the rails. But what the people you love and shit, you will feel bad about it. You'll be like, damn, maybe I could have handled that shit differently. And then you're like, let's do something else. Because you do like to do different things. You like to try new things. And new things. You don't like to do the same fucking shit. You like newness and shit. You try to see that. Yeah, what would you find? Fun and other things. If you don't like it, then you won't do it ever again. Um, but you're also like not gonna like wait on anything. Like when you feel like doing it, you're gonna do it. Like then, seize the opportunity, right? People love you for that, but then they see, they're like, oh my gosh, this person, my girl, they could be running around fucking with these people and these people and these, and then, it's like, are you like really, you know, considering your people, but then you do, because then you're there saying, you're there telling them shit. You're like, hey man, da, 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 da. You saying, or hey girl, da, 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 da. You like letting them know what the fuck they're doing good or what the fuck they're doing not. And you're like being loud about it and everything, but it's like not, meant to like give them or you gotta be ready for this type of energy and shit. Like, cause you're energetic too. Um, so you're gonna be like, you have to be ready to like, do some shit. Like right now, we could be over there doing some stuff. We could be over there doing something. You can't be in a relationship that's like more stagnated. Another thing, and another thing about that too, um, you don't give a fuck about money either. You don't really care about that. That comes and goes and other things. The experiences are always around and stuff, um, or not always around, because like you have to seize the opportunity when it's there, that type of thing. That's why you don't care about money and shit, you know, because that shit will come and other things, but the opportunities and the experiences you can have and shit, those don't those doors close and shit sometimes and never come back, you know. And so that's where you work and shit. So like if somebody can't be there, you know, you'll be, not hurt by it. You'll let them know, but you could be hurt by it if you um thought that person could hang with you and they can't anymore, or they just don't. So you gotta be with somebody who can hang with your, foolishness and run around with you, and they don't care about money either, or they'll make it work. Maybe they're the one, the other person's the one that's financially cool, and then they might, be, telling you things sometimes. You gotta have fire relationship because you're one that likes to like really have fun and you do that, but sometimes you have that person there that's like more, it's cool to not do that right now and those things, and you're like, that's great. And then by the time, everything's handled and shit, you back out and fun doing that shit. But some people can't get along with you at all like that. And then they don't like the fact that you are, running your mouth and, you just say what you need to say, and you say it fast and shit, you ain't gonna hold back on, what you have to tell somebody. typically, and you won't do that for somebody that you love. You ain't gonna lie to them. You would do that to for somebody else. I could say some things about that person, but I don't know. But like for you, for the person that you love, like your brother, your sister, your like whoever the fuck it is that you really care for, you can be like, no, 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 like not that. Like let's not do that, or we're not doing that shit today. Not right now. That shit's not. That's in bad taste here. To me. You know, and people sometimes, they know what like ticks you off and shit, and they just like to see you get like that. Um, that's your relationships. You like to have fun and you like to seek new experiences. Um, you live life like that, but you value that about yourself. You're like, I cannot not do stuff like for any kind of amount of time. If I feel like I can do something right now, I'm gonna do something right now. And whatever happens, happens and shit. It might be stupid too, but I don't care. No fucks given type shit. But yeah, and you'll seek other things if you have to. Um, I love you and stuff, but and you will be like one of those people too. But if you're not, willing to move around and make shit interesting, um, like you won't hesitate to leave a relationship. You won't. You know, and you'll be hurt too. But like you moving on, it's like you healing and shit. That's what you feel like. Because if they can't run around with this shit like this, then they can't. They can't walk around with this shit like this. Yeah, and that's what you do with your relationships. But they have to like satisfy that. We can't be doing the same thing though. That we gotta spice it up all the time. Make things fun, different ways. And if that's how the relationship is, that's cool, and that's what matters to you the most. That's what you value. Fun, different experiences we can experience together. As a family, or as a you and your girl, you and your boyfriend, or whatever. And that's what you have to do. But said partner, people, friends, have to be along for the ride. You lose people and shit. And it seems as though to the outside world you don't give a fuck, but you do. But like that's why you do it and shit, because you have to like continue to like and move forward, and then you like let them know and shit too, like right away too, because like you gotta let them know now, or whatever. I'd rather not have that on my chest and shit. You know, whereas other people might not. You tell them exactly what it is. You don't want like that. Loud and proud and all that shit. And you like that about you too. Now another person is Capricorn. Now they value their hard work and their discipline. Um, Capricorn, Venus, and the second house. And these people make their money and shit too because they're signs and stuff, right? And they like to capitalize on their careers and shit. So they might fall in love with their career. This person, and then when they're in a relationship, they're like, hey, this is a career, and the money's there too. Um, but I gotta make more money and shit out the job and stuff. They'll be like that. So they might be, consumed by work and shit. But, it ain't like they hate you or anything because they're, doing that job and stuff. So they can, so they can like make sure you're, cool and taken care of. Because that's what they do. And now they do like to, after, work and shit, because they don't always like to work and stuff, right? They like to, make sure that the people they love, you know, handled and taken care of. You know, you need money for this and that. You know, I'll make sure that happens, right? But only for the people that they love and shit. You know, because this person's like a dad and stuff, right? But like, there's a lesson to be learned in other things. You know, you see how I move and other things. I need you to be able to, you know, do things too. You need to show me something first. You know, they make to make their people earn it too. You know, show me that you can, you know, make decisive moves for yourself, and you know, then I'll be like more willing to like share, you know, something I have because you know I put in the work, I put discipline into myself, you know, built this, you know, what I got going on. Now I need you to, follow suit and do similar. You know, I need somebody to like move around like me in that way. Yeah, this ain't about fucking around. You know, this type of love ain't about fucking around. You know, this is kind of tough love too. Um, and I either do it this way. Um, but they can still give gifts and stuff depending on the person and shit. Um, because they're like, you know, I do want you to like, know I love you and shit. And, you know, I am a person who likes things too. You know, that's why I work hard so I can have all the things I want. Um, and like all the, status that comes with being a job, being the best at my job, you know. Because then people come to me and they're like, damn, you know, you're the guy, you know, all this shit, you know, you're the guy that, knows the ins and outs of shit like this. You know, where to put money and other stuff too. You know, and you'll make moves fast too. You know, you try to make, quick moves. Like, and it ain't even quick moves, but it's like, you're not going to, let your feelings, hold you back and shit. That's that type of thing. And you know, like, work, and do that. And, sometimes that shit's draining and stuff, right? So in your relationship, you could suffer and shit, but it won't because, the person you're with ain't gonna fucking, do that thing. They're like, no. They say, no. After, you come home and other things, you calm the fuck down, 'cause you ran ragged at work and shit, and, you're gonna be, like this, girl, whatever, work was like that and other shit, girl, you have to, like, calm the fuck down and, it's alright, back at it tomorrow, and other shit, and that's what, happens, with this type of person, who loves like this, the people see what they do and they do that, isn't if they love them and shit, right? But this person also, does that for them too, because they know, like, because I know what it is like to, work hard and go to work every day, day out, it can be stressful and everything, but they like that too, though. Like the Capricorns like that, but the person who ain't a Capricorn might be like, and then they give, to their, people they love. They're like, yeah, and it ain't like they expect anything back in return. I'll give you that. But just remember, I work for it. You need to work for your shit too. They won't give you anything unless show them something. Or even if you cost to, what I do now, like, cause like you're living in my house, or with doing this, and you're using my things. You have to at least, fucking, respect that. And like respect that too. Like, you will be doing things. You will be crossing all these rules and other shit. But like, I know you. Oh wow, yeah. But this person definitely, values their, money, and they value things too. Um, but they, keep people around who, can confide in them. Will confide in them. Like, will listen to them about, other things. They like what they do for them. And then they like, also like to, instill that inside of those other the people they love. Don't be hard on them. Go to work. Do this, do that. You know, do it, you know, and stay the fuck away from that type of thing. You know, no fucking around because you know work, work and fucking around and whatever. You know, that type of thing for this person. You know, and that's them like showing some type of love. You know, tough love in that way. Um, but they value that because they say they value that money and other things too. Um, and that like status of the career and other things. You know, they like to love their career too. They do. Um, but sometimes they don't, and then that can be, you know, stressful. At least it's a stress for them. But if they love their job, then they ain't stressed about it. They actually love doing their shit, and they love making money. Just like the other side, but and like their relationships don't suffer for it. They can if they're with the wrong person. Shit, they don't understand that we know what needs to be done and other things, you know. But because it's not always about the money, but it is, you know, because we live in a world that that should, you know, people have jobs and other things, you know, have this to do, and it's like in the art to like be like that, you know, like be that. Now, this next person, you know, loves, you know, this is Aquarius and Venus, and this is in the second house, right? You know, so they value their heart too, but they value the fact that they love their friends. You know, and what do I mean by that? They love their friends. Um, they don't hate their family members. They like to communicate with everybody. Their family members too. They like to, you know, talk to them and shit, right? But it's the people that, and I ain't gonna say they hate their family members, but they love the people that see them as like that friendly type of person, right? That is good to talk to and shit, you know. And, no. They'll make, you know, interesting conversations, you know, and they can, you know, but only with the people that, you know, they love. You know, they ain't gonna do that shit with people that they don't love. They'll be more closed off. They won't talk to them. They'll, you know, be very short with them. They will not do that. You know, they're like smart people. You know, people they can carry on a conversation with, right? Because it's a win. Now these, you know, conversations are, you know, usually, you know, interesting, right? You know, because you know he had these people have questions on their heart, you know, about where they can go in life, you know, with their relationship, you know, and like, you know, in our relationship, maybe we should, you know, start doing this instead of this. You know, they don't mind a little bit of change, is what I'm saying. Let's shake things up a little bit and do this. You know, we should, you know, do this and do that in the relationship. Um, uh, Instead of living here, let's live here because in this town, there's, you know, these people that do this, and there's better, it's better living over there because like, you've done research and other things, but you like value that type of communication and shit, and like, you let them know, you know, it's time for some change and other things. Um, you can't be with somebody who can't do that. You know, won't be all right with that. Every once in a while, you know, you'll need to, you know, do that, and they'll be open to, you know, new ideas. You know, as far as what you do together, you know, things will evolve in the relationship. Essentially, things will not stay the same. You know, and you know, as long as you have that type of communication and things are known, like you know, things change over time. You know, this relationship will have to evolve from, you know, us doing this to us not doing this. You know, that communication wouldn't have to be there, and you gotta like value that type of change. You know, because change makes us better as like a couple or as, you know, a group of friends or whatever. You know, that's the way we like propel us forward in life or whatever. You know, and that's what this person values. You know, the and they do, even if they are more introverted, they'll come out for their friends and shit and be like, hey man, maybe we should we should do this instead of this, because this ain't working, but this will work, you know, and maybe, this sounds, a little bit, out of the ordinary, maybe for me to say shit like this, but I think we need that, to make this relationship better or whatever, you know. It could be all kinds of shit. People get ideas and all kinds of shit. I don't always want to like, like I said earlier, let's live here instead of here because here we ain't growing as people. Over there's better jobs and other shit. It can be something as simple as that. It can be other things though. But they only do that with their friends. They ain't gonna open up and say like things like that around other people because they don't want that known about them, like that type of thing. Like I'm only that person around the people I love, not around the people I don't. But anyways, in the last person is Pisces, Venus and Pisces in the second house. Now this person don't give a fuck about money and stuff, but they will prioritize money for a love, if you know what I mean. So like this person themselves don't care about money, but they love somebody who cares about money. They be like, yeah, I got that money for you and stuff. But you know, I'll care for you. I'll take you out, be romantic and all that extra stuff. But there's no buts there. Just all that extra stuff. With this person, they don't really care about the deep connection because the sea was water. Remember? And Venus is exalted in Pisces, right? And this is in the second house, so now this might lead to a relationship that is not, or relationships that aren't so financially stable. But it's like it don't matter, like that money don't matter until because the relationship's so good because you put all your energy into the relationship. You listen to your partner. You cost to your friends and shit, you cause like what they like and what they've been through and all that shit. And you're like, man, all right, man. You are going through this shit right now. All right, I'll go through it with you. Or, hey God, you wanted this thing for your birthday and shit. I was listening to you before when you were bitching and moaning and shit, but here it is, another thing. You know. That person really does, they want to keep them around too. They don't want to, see them go away. You know, they'll do what they have to do. You know, they start to see signs of, their fucking, relationship going south. They try to repair that immediately, that type of thing. They rather not be away from the partner. They rather be, with arms reach their partner. That type of deal. Yeah, clingy, but also, not. Because they can also pull back sometimes and, like, let that, energy, that tension build up again, But, they know how to, like, really, be that person, like, that romantic, that very, uh, keep a level of mystique in the relationship, even with their friends and shit. Like let's not talk about that either. With their friendship, that's my guy who, he got my back every once in a while. When, I'm down, he don't want to see me down. He wants to see me up, so he's gonna make sure she comes up. You know, he would take a bullet for me. He would He has like that type of mentality. She um and as a friend or whatever, she or he, 'cause this is me, uh, that guy does care about me. He's shown it. He's given his time to me. And he don't mind doing that either. He don't mind it. If I had to die, with this guy, and not on some gay shit, but if I had to, go through it with my friend, I would. You know, if I had to go through it with my girl, I would. We'll make it out of this shit together. This person, values that part of themselves. They have that wisdom too, so it like makes it interesting in the relationship. Certain level of wisdom, some of that kind of shit, all like comes together and creates a person who is, and more so like some more than others, is what I'm saying. But a very interesting person that keeps that relationship going. So these people, probably won't, experience a shitty relationship really. Um, this person, knows how to love well and like keep that person around, keep their friends around, certainly, and then when they lose these people, they're devastated. These people like get devastated and shit when they lose it. Initially like lose people and shit. I lost this girl, I lost this person, but then they can bounce back because of that wisdom and shit, right? Because they remember, they remember them, and then they're like, I can still be me even without them. But I'll always remember them and shit, that type of thing. And they will too. But uh, that's, Venus in the second house, the way people value, love and peace and, their relationships with people, their money, because that has to do with the second house too. Um, but be cool, call in the corner, and have a good night.